Approve of the minutes?
I'll make that motion. Oh, I wasn't here, I can't make it.
I will make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay,
Unless they changed, they did.
I can second it.
can you? Okay.
Well, I don't know, I thought I could.
Sounds good to me.
I think so.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Business. Committee review of Livingston County zoning case SF 518 FCI subdivision.
For all of these, I did email his issues out tonight. The applicants are here this evening, so if you want to have any questions on them, that's what it is. The only, I'll go through, basically what they're taking is they have their 6.56 acre tract of properties to the northwest of Fairbury. It's been that way for years. On the property, if you look at the maps, where it's located at, it's easy, just go to the plat of the property. Well, the aerial photo basically shows you a little bit of the house and then the buildings that are on the property also. The plat here shows you the house, and it's here. The longer build, there was tool shed here and a shed schoolhouse that's here. This here is, they operate in FCI, stands for Fair Cap Interiors. They make interiors to replace them in kind. This is where they do the business at. So a farm-related business located right there. They are building a new house and they're getting ready to move out of this home, into a new home later on. And they're trying to get this set up for the corporation down the road. So the corporation basically takes over ownership of everything, and they want to have the house set up that if at some point in time in the future the corporation wants to sell the house off,
They
then it's
can.
on a separate piece of property in order for them. That's what's being proposed to you, very simply is what it is. There is a variance that is involved in it. If you look at the back garage here, it sits 10 feet off of the property line. The variance that was designed for it was 50 feet for a rear yard because the front of the house faces the south. The road's over here. It could be a side yard. It still needs a variance. It's either 10 feet off instead of 25 feet for a side yard or 50 feet. They designed everything, decades ago before they kind of knew where they're going to be going. At this point in time, they have an idea as to where they want to plan the future in regards to this. So they want to subdivide it into these two lots, so they have the house on a separate piece of property from all the other buildings except for the one shed. As you can see, there is some lane that goes through here, back in here. So there will be some easements that are created because what the subdivision, so the ingress and egress easements that go back to the business, and it allows for access to the house and to the business as they've been doing it for years. They don't want to change it, they have to want to kind of keep that going at this point in time in order to do that. So it has gone through the planning commission, it has gone through the planning commission did the public hearing in regards to the subdivision on it. The planning commission has recommended be approved. The zoning board of appeals reviewed the variance specifically on it with the public hearing in regards to that. They've recommended that be approved. At either hearing, there's been nobody there to give any testimony except for the applicants. They were there to give testimony of both of them. So there's been no opposition to it, so that's what's being proposed.
This is a fairly cut and dry thing. It doesn't look like it's anything outside of anything that we've done before.
It's
Water, septic, been separated.
Well,
There's a well on the other property, but
Gonna share the well for now?
we've done it. The setback distance
Yes.
is a little bit of an issue. We've done it years ago. It's not like it's totally unusual. We did it before just because of the way the building's set up. It's kind of unusual when you get houses that are that close to property lines. It's just the way it ended up being. So, but have we done it? We did it years ago. Yes.
I think at this point you said an employee was going to be living in the house.
Yes.
Our youngest daughter's moving there with her husband, and he is coming to work with us here in the next month or so.
Good way to keep track of it.
He's a good guy so far.
I don't know who's keeping track of who though.
That's why we're leaving, so that it can't keep track of it.
That's what it is.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion for approval.
I'll second that.
Who's going to make it? Second by all. Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No,
Now, this goes to the county board.
A week from Thursday.
pardon?
The county board has to approve it a week from Thursday.
Okay, do we need to attend that meeting?
It never,
It never
I
hurts.
would say 99% of the time, no, but
I thought this was a county board this evening.
no.
It's a committee.
This committee.
Zoning board.
This is the last step before the county board.
That's fine.
But
6 o'clock.
there's only one more meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the good news.
Next Thursday evening.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
6 o'clock out here.
Okay, so do we, for the 911 address, since it's gonna be subdivided, which office do we, you take care of that?
You can talk to me, yeah.
All
So
right,
probably,
that's 10116, we'd like to be 10114 if we can.
okay, remind me, give me a call and remind me of that, and we'll take care of that, and we'll kind of make that work, okay?
Okay,
Because you probably want to keep the business one. It's
yeah, we're gonna leave the mailbox and the flag on
Didn't give
it.
your daughter a new one?
Yep,
Okay.
already got a mailbox.
That way your son-in-law can dig the hole.
There you go.
Sounds like you
Are we
guys are running into
excused?
middle.
you sure.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the second item is committee review of solar energy special use application for Livingston County zoning case SU 718 Origo Solar Murphy's, Roger and Jill.
Okay, first of all, through the last few months, you've got a lot of the application package in regards to this. And then I did email a lot of this to you, and then before you have a package, what you have tonight is the project narrative. You have the copy of the PowerPoint presentation that was given to the zoning board of appeals, maybe not the other evening. You have, I'm bringing the exhibit boards to you tonight because if you didn't, the maps that you had in the past weren't real easy to see. If you look at these real quick, they kind of give you dimensions. This is Route 17 and 170. This is the old pre-stressed concrete here. This is the green bin, these are the old restaurants over there, and it's the metal shop there. So it's down there a mile, so it's there. This blows it up a little bit to show you where it's going to be there. And then this takes and brings you right in as to where it's going to be located on the property. The transformer and everything in the middle to kind of cut down on noise in regards to that. They do have a hedge that's going to be planted along here. This is a small substation that they do plan on doing the interconnect on the other side of the road over here. So it is kind of a little bit of a unique situation in regards to that. So that's basically the information they have, and the report explains that, which you've seen before, is in regards to all that too. Their PowerPoint presentation, if you had a chance to go through it, goes through the detail, in a lot of detail in regards to that. And they do cover the property values in regards to this application, and they do cover everything else, including the boards that are up there. And they did go through the special use standards and how they met all the special use standards in regards to this proposal this evening. I also attached to it a copy of all the exhibits that are part of the application, plus the ones that were produced at the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, which include everything you've seen before, the exhibit boards, the PowerPoint presentation. They did send out letters to surrounding property owners, the property value information they gave us, the narrative you have, application, plans, copy of lease agreement, zoning maps. They did do a decommissioning estimate, which they altered. You have a copy of that. It's part of the report also they gave. The drain tile studies, and soil information in regards to that. And wetland studies, a lot of soil stuff. They had a comment page on the ComEd interconnect. Construction information in regards to how many trucks will be coming in, how long it would take, etc. Their contact the IDNR, UOI for historic preservation, and then they had just a large set of additional documents that had to do with the tracking system and so forth. They went with that. Wisconsin Soil Conservation District did an NRI report, which I believe you had a copy of previously presented to you. The rest of this is a couple of pages that it had to deal with the approval of it, starting with the Zoning Board of Appeals, which does make a recommendation this be approved with conditions. A couple of things in regards to conditions I'd probably like to point out is, since these were kind of an overlap from the last time, and it's for us to be consistent, I'm probably asking that the committee consider changing the two conditions we changed last time. So they're worded the same as they were before. We changed number 8 in regards to the review status of it, so the language is the same as we did before as far as the review status of the previous one, which
What was that language?
ended up reading the status of the solar development be reviewed by Livingston County Zoning Board of Appeals in 1 year, unless otherwise determined by Livingston County Zoning Administrator, although no such review will alter the status or validity of the special use permit as proposed and approved.
Okay.
And then number 12 was amended so that in the first line where it says the county, it becomes the county reasonably retains, just add the word reasonably in there, so it becomes added in regards to that. In addition, one small difference in the conditions is in the proposed SU7, there was a proposed condition number 14 that has to do with the fence. The applicant had proposed a 7-foot high fence. In the ordinance, it's an 8-foot high fence, and the zoning board didn't give in on that with a variance, so they're gonna make them stay with the ordinance requirement of an 8-foot high fence.
Sure.
So that's just restating that they need to install the 8-foot high fence in regards to that. And then to the back of the report, you do have a copy of the decommissioning, where they came up with a figure of 150,000, so when you see the conditions in there, what you saw was 135,000 last time, 150,000 has been reinsured in regards to that as far as that figure is concerned, so you have that new figure in regards to that. And then you have the original planning commission report in regards to this one. It's the same as it was in the previous ones, other than there's more discussions taking place within the planning commission as far as how much ag lands could be potentially taken out of production in regards to if we have multiple solar farms as we move along. It's how far you go and how many ag land can be taken out of production, so that may be an issue as far as a question more closely in the future in regards to that.
Was the reasoning for the 7-foot versus the 8-foot simply a monetary thing?
Well, we can ask.
They were going with 7 foot because there's a standard that's put out that says that 7 foot is the height it should be. We made it 8 foot.
Of course.
Can I
Because that's what it was.
Why don't you guys introduce both of you introduce yourselves?
Sure, I'm Kip Smith with Borrego Solar, I'm civil engineer with the firm.
Margaret Blum with Greenberg Farrell, Development Services, Senior Development Coordinator for
I
Borrego.
guess the question is, does the applicant have a problem with 8 foot?
If that's the desire of the board, we can live with it. We really prefer 7. The reason being, we can do a 7-foot fence with driven posts, and 8 foot, we need to put a little concrete base with every one of them. 7 foot is the standard for National Electric Code for farms of this type. So that's our standard and pretty much most solar standard. So that's where the 7 feet comes from.
For anybody, why did we go 8? I mean,
Because when we originally put the zoning ordinance together, I took examples of other solar farm ordinances from throughout the country, and one of them had 8 foot in there, so I used 8 foot, so.
I mean,
What,
I don't have a
what do you feel
problem,
the
but-
cost difference is? I don't know how many feet this is, to surround this whole thing from 7 to 8 feet and then post, what's the cost difference of?
You know,
Put 'em
I'm
a
not
7
sure
to 8
what,
foot.
what the difference, it will be
Yes.
more.
Oh, sure. yeah,
Driving
concrete
post
and everything
versus
else.
augering,
I was gonna say,
putting
because-
concrete, it will be
former life,
quite a bit.
30% chain link fence.
at least
There's a big
25.
difference when you drill a hole and put
Yeah,
concrete in than
it's-
driving.
I would say it's at least 25% more, it could be more than that.
Yeah. Time you drill the holes, bring a
You have more-
concrete.
you just have more labor.
And then when we decommission, 25 years from now, whatever the figure is, then we gotta pull all those little concrete blocks out, so it gets jerking the post out of the ground.
And then
I
you
mean,
have-
I don't want it to be punitive at 7 foot.
I mean, if you drive a post in, and you pull it out, you probably don't have to fill it. If you have a concrete, you pull it out, and you've got 4 feet of concrete, you've gotta come up with more fill to fill this hole.
You got some
down the road.
concrete, whatever it is,
Yeah,
yeah, whether it's 4 feet or 2 feet,
Yeah, that's,
you've got a bigger hole.
I mean, if there's National Electric Code standards, I don't know why we would be more restricted.
Well, each time there's an applicant, this will come up because
Well, unless we change our requirement to 7 feet.
when we change our requirements, it has to go back to the ZBA
I understand.
to change it.
But correct me if I'm wrong, is this a standard of 8 foot that we've applied somewhere else?
It is part of the applications for the previous two,
Uh-huh,
and it's gonna be part of an application of an upcoming one,
yep,
and they do, so.
that changes things.
Well, but none have been constructed.
That is correct.
So, I mean, those that have applied, I'm sure they would not object to going to 7 feet. As long as, I mean, I understand your reasoning, Paul, but as long as they haven't been constructed.
The first two that's in their application, so
Pardon me?
the first two are kind of obligated to it at this point in time, since they committed to it, so. Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's
We
gonna
could
be
look like
real
really
tough
good
to
people
go back
if we
and
went
take
back and
that
say
foot
go
off,
7.
Right,
because
We
of
could
all
really
of the
look like
procedure we'd have to
really
go
good
through.
back and say,
Change it.
you know
Well,
what,
there again,
let's go back with the standard, I mean, if it's 7, but it's not like we have anything against the first 2 applicants. And they've accepted that responsibility, but
well, this applicant had, that night, had accepted that also.
Well, I heard him say, if we, that's what we gotta do, we'll do it. I'm just, you know, considering what it takes to decommission and everything else.
well, I mean, laws and standards change all the time.
But if they,
You're not happy with it, I'm sure. Or not.
Well,
We'd
we
rather
prefer it to
not.
be 7, that's, most of our other sites are 7, and that's what we're used to.
Yeah, I don't think the height is all that important as much as what's on the ground. What it takes to get it there and what.
well, if they get over
the
7,
decommissioning.
if they get over 7 foot, they could probably get over 8 foot, if they're gonna go over the fence to do something.
They wanna get
But they're
over
gonna-
the height, unless you put razor wire on it.
I know one guy here's not
Us-
coming
us
over
two are-
7 or 8 feet.
Yeah, us two are not getting.
Well, I don't want to
Asking
kind of
about-
rule you
if I
out.
were to go in, I'm gonna
It's
get
a lot
over
more
and
than
say,
2.
you need the key to the gate.
Well, I don't think anybody wants barbed wire or razor wire.
No.
No.
No, I was
We
not
can reconsider
suggesting
that.
that. And quite frankly, if you wanna get through chain link fence, you cut one
I mean,
piece.
we're all-
behind it.
You guys maybe are not as new as this as we are to a point. I mean, if, now might be the time to change that and go back to 7. And it has to go back to zoning board, whatever.
Process all over again.
That'd be the only thing you'd have to change.
And zoning board of appeals didn't want to budge on it.
Correct. And they may be open to a text amendment on it, but.
They didn't want to budge because it is our ordinance.
Yeah, well, I
So
understand
they
that.
said, okay, you applicant, you need to stick with that because that's what our ordinance says.
Okay.
That's a recommendation to us, but we can do, I mean, that's the same thing with the, taking it down in 20 years or whatever. One of them says 135,000, the other one says 150. We didn't coach them to say, well, you don't have to go to 150, just go to 135, because that's what the previous ones did. We asked them for a figure that they could live with, and that's what they proposed, was 150,000.
Sure. Chuck? What are your thoughts?
Are there any other conditions that would hinder you from doing this development?
No, we're fine with the conditions. This wouldn't hinder us either, but we,
Well, it's the same thing, I thought about the hedgerow, or whatever you want to call it, the evergreens that block from the highway. I mean, I've been out to this property, and it's kind of out there in,
Nowhere.
well, yeah.
It's in Blackstone, you know.
Yeah.
Being
well, if that's on the
I take
table,
that
we
personally.
prefer not to do that throw either, but
Pardon?
I said if that's on the table, we probably
One
wouldn't
way
need to
we-
do the hedgerow either, but.
One way we
you know,
may be able to address this is, if we're gonna review it, the zoning board's gonna review it 1 year anyway. If to change the zoning ordinance between now and then, if they come in for the review, the application's supposed to be substantially changed. Maybe they could say, okay, you change the ordinance, we wanna take it from 8 to 7 to meet your current ordinance or something like that. Because then,
But, I mean, yeah, but a year from now, are they gonna be installed?
they don't know.
I hope so.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, it's up to, it's up to the Illinois Power Authority and what projects are
Yeah,
approved and not
there's other
approved.
factors obviously
Probably,
involved.
probably has a lot of.
We would sure hope that,
Yeah.
that we had to put the 8-foot fence in if it's a
Yeah.
year, we're talking a year from now, it's already done.
The way I'd heard it is all the applicants that are presently proposing a development are not going to get approved. Not by us, but by ComEd or Ameren, whoever's paying for the hookup, or whoever they're hooking up to. So they might not get approved, not by us.
How many are they approving?
So I guess the question is, do you want to make it 7 foot and let,
I'd like to send it back, but that's my opinion, I don't know, anybody else.
well, we don't think we have to send it back.
I'd like to be a good neighbor or steward to them, and then if we can go back to the others, but, and if it's not feasible, then I understand that, but.
Well, we take the 8-foot fence versus trying to go back to the
Having to
whole
go back through a
process.
process that,
Oh, okay, then that's,
I would leave it the way it is at this point.
But to take that in mind, if for some reason you don't get approved to build this year, or in 2019, and they say, okay, we're gonna approve you, but you built in 2020, or whatever it's gonna be, when we do look at the year, keep that in mind.
okay.
and
Are there any other
what would
questions?
we have to do, send back a request to review a text amendment? In the meantime, Chuck?
I'm already in the process of doing it, I'll just add this to that.
Okay.
I was looking at some other factors, and
Considering
It's getting-
the applicant has accepted the
yeah,
2 tweaks to the conditions, and hearing no other objection, I would move for approval.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mike, second by Paul. Okay, any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you very much. This will move to county board
I'll wait for Thursday.
on the 23rd. Is that
16th.
Oh, the 16th, yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. What time is that?
6.
6 PM, thank you.
The next thing on the agenda is small cell wireless facilities. At the meeting in Geneva, is it Geneva?
Elena?
Galena, thank you, at Galena. There was a speaker there that talked about small cell technology and what it possibly could look like. So I asked Chuck to see if we could get some information and give to the committee so they could see, in case this came up, what it is, what we're talking about, and what the possibilities of it happening in the rural area.
Okay, I did send you the entire PowerPoint from that presentation, so you have a better idea. That was on email. Tonight I just gave you 3 pages. This kind of came up suddenly last week. We do have a copy of a model ordinance. The city of Pontiac approved that they adopted that model ordinance other than making it specific to what they wanted to go to. If you look at the pages I handed out, just 3 pages tonight, if you look at that, the top thing kind of indicates a whole lot to me, is that the only thing a small cell has a coverage area of 250 feet to 1,000 feet. So the chance of this being developed in rural areas very much is slim to none. I had somebody from AT&T call me late maybe Thursday or Friday last week, wanting to put up a larger cell tower, regular cell tower. in the county. So I kind of asked him about it, and he kind of indicated that these were more designed for urban areas, and now they're moving down into the suburban areas, highly populated areas. I'm not saying that the city of Pontiac couldn't utilize this, because they're more developed, they have norms to do that, they have more uses for that. But if the technology is only good for 250 to 1,000 feet, the mile is 5,280 feet, you can put up 5 of these small cells for every mile to make this work.
Rural areas.
No, it's
Not a,
you know, where this thing could apply, and being on the 911 board, we've had these discussions. Fairbury has traditionally really poor cellular reception.
Agreed.
And, you know, something over there, even though it's not a rural area, might be applied, although is the new AT&T tower over that direction proposed?
he did not tell me where it's
Oh,
going to go.
okay. Because I know the folks in Fairbury have been looking for,
It's brutal. You can't make a call there.
well, you can, but
If you're not on if you're on AT&T, you're shut off, no service.
Yeah, it's,
I am, and
yeah,
so it's not good.
yeah.
But you can make calls if you get in the right place. But
So
it's,
driving around or what?
You definitely don't wanna do it at wind farm meetings and try and get a phone call out, that's for sure.
In buildings, yeah.
just inside a building.
Yeah. And if you really looked at this, this kind of is a unique situation, kind of overflows into road usage because of right of ways and using poles. So this, and Clay has been kind of brought into this, so he has a working knowledge of what's going on. I guess our ideal situation, in case it hits us, we want to come up with a very simple ordinance possibly, as simple as possible, look at it. I mean,
And when you say simple, what are you thinking?
less than 18 pages the city of Pontiac has. I mean, this is a really, this legislation is 37 pages long, it's really detailed.
So they'd have to get approval from whoever owns these power poles anyway. I mean-
Or put in your own, or get approval to put one on the right of way on your own as to where it goes. You put in your own in order to put it in, but
That's quite a variance from 250 feet to 1,000. That's crazy.
But thing is,
It's not gonna be rural.
it's not gonna, in a true rural area,
No.
you know, maybe a Fairbury or a community that's,
But I did ask the gentleman when I talked to him for the AT, he goes, you have to have a cell tower fairly close. Like Pines,
Oh, yeah.
Pines got them around here. So Fairbury, I mean, I know they got one or two that are a few miles off in the country there, but I don't know if they would work with that or not, but.
one of
they're
these
more than one.
positioned right might help, but
So you do have to build a new major cell tower and then feed everything off of it and put these in to kind of supplement that to make it work, I'm not real sure. So I think we're gonna kind of continue to look at it. We'll probably see if another rural county comes up with an ordinance and say, my, this looks awfully good or something, or it
Yeah.
doesn't look good or something like that.
Lino's
See if
gonna
that
check
works.
with other counties and see if we couldn't get one that wouldn't have to recreate the wheel here. Because we don't wanna use Pontiacs. I mean, it's 15 pages covers everything from soup to nuts.
Galena, was there any discussion about other counties having ordinances or?
Yeah, nobody really knew about the legislation that was there.
Cook County.
I'm sure it's so new that everybody's just scrambling.
Yeah, just the ones up north.
Yeah, Lake County, Lake and DuPage County.
Lake and DuPage have
We're
been
not-
hit.
We're not in,
That's
we're
not
not
gonna
in.
be the
Yeah, it's
same.
not the
It's not
same.
gonna be the same.
So nothing, we don't have anything as far as the rural counties, similar to us. I know that they'll all be looking at it just because a lot of them there were 43 rural counties at that, conference, so.
Sure.
I'm sure a lot of them are gonna be looking at them, but UCCI already provided me with all the resources that they had, and I forwarded them on to Chuck. So,
What about other states? Is there any information about other states with this technology? Surely Illinois is not the trendsetter in this.
I mean, you get some of the western states with real rural, I mean, they'd have some of the major pole towers, and then you can feed off of them.
The thing is,
And that's,
basically, the tower, originally the towers were laid out basically along interstates.
Of course.
That's why Fairbury was kind of
In that
just too
whole-
far off. get into Western, less populated, unless you're within 1,000 foot of an interstate tower.
We can maybe check to see, one of the, like the counties on the outskirts, like maybe a Kendall who had a lot of urban area and a lot of development, but that still is rural.
Yeah.
They may have some,
Sure.
they may be quick to develop theirs and then we can work off of theirs.
This is, so they go to 5G is what the major driving factor of this is for.
Oh, really?
And
Better use your phone.
with all the existing larger towers over the past 2 years, several of them have converted them with new antennas and stuff, so they're upgrading those towers a lot in the last couple of years, so they're kind of working towards that with the larger towers.
And just out of curiosity, what's the tower that's in McDowell?
That is a private, should be a cell tower.
I believe it is.
Yeah, but it's a private company. I'd have to check, it may be AT&T, if you get.
Nothing's changed with their
Nothing's
service,
changed with their
but I'm just curious if
Who's
it's
the
something.
serve, huh?
Yeah.
They haven't got their upgrade yet.
That tower, the one, cell towers are frustrating because you have a company that's supposed to be doing it, be it Sprint, AT&T, or whoever. They'll hire a company to be the land seeker,
Yeah.
and then they'll hire subcontractors to build it, and it's kind of a nightmare, and as to who's gonna do what and when, so that was a particular one, because that was on the books.
And I think, if I read right here,
Yeah.
so supposedly according to state law, as of August 1st, we're supposed to have an ordinance in place. Well, we didn't know about it hardly by August 1st, so we have a hard time putting together an ordinance on, we don't even know that
Yeah.
the thing exists.
And nobody's gonna come and beat us.
Okay? So we'll continue to pursue that.
Yeah, good luck, Joe.
Okay, solid waste report.
Okay, just kind of normal stuff. The first, you have the sheet with the synopsis. The first one was just a copy of the NDPS, the National Food Discharge Elimination System permits. It's for June and for the second quarter. They did the annual ground flow elevations for both Livingston and Streeter. Both of them, the same Streeter's flows towards the river. Livingston landfill's ground flow, water elevation flows to the corner of where Row Road intersects the tunnel road that runs north on the west side of the landfill. That's kind of the areas where everything joins over in there. Had a lot of groundwater results that came in, both for confirmed increases and noticed of observed increases. There's a lot of observed increases, but there's only 2 confirmed increases, so that's kind of good to see that in regards to that. They did disconnect one of their cleanout risers, and it's sealed to the atmosphere, so there's no water going out of there. There's a previous permit agreement they had with the EPA that they could do that once they had not as much gas and leachate coming out of that they could slowly go back on that, and that's what they did in regards to that. They did the landfill gas migration issues, and again, there's nothing on the perimeter in regards to that. They had the first semi-annual report in regards to the Clean Air Act permit, which is a thick document. I got them all here. Almost all the startup and shutdowns, this has to do with all the flare, the two major enclosed flares, and the candlestick flare. Almost all of them had to do with maintenance issues and/or power issues where ComEd wanted to shut things down. There was a period in June, I forget the dates, where a thunderstorm caused them to shut down, and I know there was some odors that day, because I had somebody comment about that too. That was the only one that was kind of an issue in regards to that, so they're pretty good at doing those. Under Streeter, again, it was the ground flow water evaluation, and then they came back with another report in regards to the methane gases, and the wells that had issues in the past, so there's nothing new in regards to that. You have the host fee information, a couple different forms. It's gone up a little bit again, so they've been increasing it over the last few months in regards to that, so we have seen a little bit of an increase, like 10,000 tons a month over the last couple of months, so they have been kicked it up a little bit during the summer numbers to do that, so they've done that.
The open houses.
I think I took the last month, they're not gonna do their open house this year, or at least in August, in regards to that.
Questions? Okay. Other issues to come before the committee? Public comment? Anything, John?
I do. Well, just a small one. On the fence thing, I don't know if it matters or not, but you know when you put up a chain link fence and they sag and some don't? Would that be the difference between the concrete or not? Like, you know what I mean? The poles get all uneven over time.
It's the
and-
wind,
No,
when you get that elevated post.
1,000 years ago,
Oh, God.
or something, I actually installed chain link fence. I installed I think it's 8 foot, it may be higher, out of Bungie. You look at chain link, you get 2 posts, you always got a top rail, and they stretch it, and that's what keeps it from collapsing and sagging. The difference is the way it's put in the ground. 7 foot on down, typical residential 4 foot. They've got it's 2 pieces of heavy sheet metal that somehow interlock and got a hole in the middle. Don't record this, but it looks like the symbol for a Nazi. It's that kind of. They put that in, they drive the post down, and then they have another hollow with a plate, they drive that, and that's what stabilizes it. But no, there's no movement or anything different. The thing is, once you get so high, they just, the stability, so you put concrete around it. And it does add a lot of, I mean, if you think about it, you gotta drill the holes, you gotta get the posts in place, and it's harder to control the height, because when you drive them, you can stop. And then you gotta get a truck there to go along and pour every one of them.
But even from 7 to 8 feet, a chain link fence, although it has a lot of holes in it, it still catches
Air, a lot of
air
wind.
and wind. And that's why they've got, the concrete, I mean, it would take you twice as long to put one up, I think, just because
It's-
setting the concrete up and
Believe me, it's,
you're gonna set your post and then
it's a lot.
you're gonna hook the
But
fence
it
up.
probably should be solider, sturdier than one without any concrete.
Well, yeah,
It's a
it's a matter of whether it's necessary.
The one other thing is the
You said the
cell
other-
phone thing. Is that like if somebody wanted to say put these in Emmington or, well, like a town that does, do all towns have zoning?
No, Emmington does though.
Okay, so like,
Campus,
McDowell,
that's the one,
if
yeah.
somebody wanted to put them in McDowell, that would fall under the county zoning?
That'd be correct, yes.
Cause there's fees associated with these if we get an ordinance passed.
That's
As long as Mayor Ritter approved it.
Right. So while they might not go into rural areas, there might be companies trying to bring to the small towns like that, so it would be good to
When
get
you get
fees in
between
place.
Try to get it in before an
57 and
ordinance.
55, there's some, well, I mean, Fairbury's one of them, there's some real dead zones. I mean, there's strips of power poles or towers, but boy, yeah, there can be
But
some.
McDowell's close enough to 55. I think the only place in Livingston County is southeast of here toward Fairbury.
I agree with you.
You get out around where you live, and Lou Tibbs and those people out there, and a lot of them have put up antennas.
We go north of Dwight, we drop off. We couldn't get nobody today.
Where?
Dwight, crossing the interstate, heading north. Nobody. That's Sprint.
Well,
See, they're changing all this equipment, you know, they keep turning the power down and going to different units and, you know, all this technology is changing, so it's gonna keep changing.
The other thing it's supposed to do is not only improve the signal.
We're
but
talking tonight, it'll be
improve the speed.
changed in 2 years.
So it's supposed
And
to.
then it may
give
be
you-
feasible to put them in the country.
More users, more.
yeah.
Okay, bills?
I added one in your report tonight for the Deegan Associates,
See, we got
882, 885.
motion approved.
Second.
Mike, second by Steve. Discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Move my meeting date.
Oh, yeah.
should be in a meeting for Illinois Emergency Management Training Summit, 4th, 5th, 6th. If you want to have the meeting on the 4th, I'll probably come back and do it. It's in Springfield. I'll probably come back and do it. I'm good if you want to move the meeting up the week of the 30th. I've already moved up my zoning meetings to that week. I could come back, do it at the evening of the 6th, which you have the administrative committee that meeting that night. I could do it that evening because I'm out of that. I'll be back here.
Are you thinking like the 28th?
Wait, the 6th would be,
Thursday, the 6th.
admin is at 5.
5 o'clock.
Why not do it then?
We do it at 6 o'clock.
6 on the 6th. That's fine.
And you'll, well, it'll be on the calendar, so that's, I'm not gonna put it on there. I'll have
That
it
works.
twice.
Appreciate it. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, I won't be there.
Okay.
How fast or good?
No executive sessions?
No.
No action? Adjournment.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
I looked at this,